want, you know, me and Mike and I and Gus, we kind of sometimes state guidance sucks the life from the meeting for a little while, and I want you to be able to share something that has to do with things that are relevant to the DLT. Sorry, Gus, I'm putting myself in the same position, just so you know. I'm not saying it's just you, because I know that Mike is going to be talking about the changes to the DLT, and we work on it, and sometimes I get a couple of Z's in. So I'm just kidding. So, yeah. So, what I want to do is go through the agenda really quickly, everyone, and then I'm going to turn the meeting over to Shirley. Um, I was really excited to see her on a meeting that I am also part of in the co-creation of. Lewis, can you go down? Yeah, show the agenda and scroll down a little bit. Um, the new chances regulations A655, and around. That's the one you're talking about, right? The DLT SLT one, Shirley? Are you talking about 660?
I got the A660.
Okay, so I have to change the agenda. Thank you. I just realized it. So Shirley's all over the place. She's doing a lot of she's a parent leader in working with Central on making some changes to chances regulations, um, and just the role of parent leadership, very similar to, in alignment with what our new chancellor really is talking about. Like any policy changes that happen at schools should have the input of parents. So she's going to be talking
I
about
can't hear
changes to
nothing.
PTAs, but
So
we are
why is
also
doing
on
this to
something
me here?
together. Wait, hold on. Who can I mute? We're also talking about something. We're on a committee together about making changes to A655, which has to do with the work of DLTs and SLTs. And um, Shirley was a really strong voice in asking questions on behalf of parents, but also in empowering DLTs a little bit more, which is really aligned to what our beliefs are as a DLT, right? And something that we're going to be talking today about our DLT training. Currently, I think there is this understanding that FACE and other central offices um, are supposed to give information to DLTs, but because a lot of DLTs are not as organized and formed as we are, and Shirley, see if you agree with me or disagree with me. Um, what winds up happening is these central offices do a lot of the functioning and the communication with the SLTs at the district level, leaving sort of the DLT as not part of a leading body in the district. So we are working to craft the chances regulations where the DLTs have some guidance as to really what their role is, where right now it's unclear. Did I say that correctly, Shirley?
Yes, yes. I think as a city as a whole, that is the general norm. But as Gus could attest to, we know D25 is strong, but most of Queens DLTs are not in that category. They usually are taking the lead. But yes, the city as a whole is they're not taking the lead as they should be
Yeah.
when it comes to training and stuff.
So it was, yeah, it was good for us to be together at the meeting, because what we were basically saying, in fairness, is that the chances regulations doesn't necessarily guide as to what the DLT can and should be doing. And so we're making recommendations where, trainings that normally come out of FACE, we're asking that they be done where FACE consults with the DLT, right? And then the DLT kind of does that in conjunction with FACE, where right now FACE sort of runs that alone. So we're right at the beginning stages of engaging in that discussion, but it's nice to have parent leaders within the mix of making decisions to see the work that we do at the local level as well. I mean, I know Shirley sees it from CPAC as well as the view of high schools, but she also did come from a K-8 model at some point, correct, Shirley? And
Yes.
she does see a lot of different DLTs, and I'm sure it's the same with PTAs, right? So um, So thank you, Shirley. It's really nice to see how respected you are across the city as a parent leader. So we're
Thank
lucky
you.
to have you. All right. So Louis, really quickly, just put up the agenda. And I see that Lamar is on. So I want to actually, we're going to wait a little bit for Mary, and then I'll have Shirley present first, and then we'll go through the minutes. But just put up the agenda really quickly, Louis, so we can.
Danielle, I have an A655 specific question. Can I ask it?
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe you and Shirley know. Over the years, based on input from many districts, including District 25, I've sent to Central the suggestion that DC 37 be added as a core member to SLTs and DLTs. Is that under discussion? Did that suggestion go anywhere?
We haven't gotten up to that yet, but surely we should make note of that, because we do know that part of the discussion is adding 2 students in the middle school, which is what we like. I really like to hear that, but that wasn't necessarily brought up at the last meeting, was it?
No, prior to the working group, because the working group did not include parents initially when they had those proposed amendments that we went over. I had brought it up. I said, Gus, yeah, because I was like, when they presented it to CPAC at first, and I said, where's DC 37? Because I know, Gus, every DLT you mentioned that you wanted DC 37 as a mandatory,
It comes from DC 37.
and they claimed that they never heard this, right? That suggestion. So I told them again, but I would of course, being Diane, will definitely bring it up again. But I would suggest that you also email Anthony Settle and Andrea again with that suggestion. But I didn't forget. I keep bringing it up. So, but we didn't get to that part, like we said, because we're gonna do an old overview of the entire A655.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so.
So right now, Shirley and I are a team, because I made Shirley be my team member, because it's just easier for us to work together. We see each other all the time, virtually. So what they're going to do is each partnership within the working group is going to get a separate chunk of the A655, and then we're going to make some recommended changes and bring it together as one working group. So I'm really happy to be on this group, and I was honored that they recognized District 25. Thank you, Gus. I know that comes from you a lot, that you show off our work. So
do what I said.
All right. Yep. Thank you. So, all right. One more time I'm sorry, Louis. One more time the agenda so I can go over it.
Are we sure?
Yep, we're sure. Okay, so I'm going to skip down to Shirley. I'm going to bump her up, actually, and then we will do the minutes following Shirley's presentation. Louis, if you could change it, because it's not A655, it's A660, right, Shirley?
That's correct.
Yep. A655 is the working group I'm on with Shirley, so that's my error too. And then Dr. D'Antona and I are going to be presenting on the finalized version of our DCEP for the 700,000th time, just for the record. I wanted to talk to the DLT around DPAC supports, and it's something that I'm going to have a conversation with Esther, but I'm also asking parent leaders, Shirley and Francis. I do think we need to engage in a discussion on our district DPAC. I think we may need to have another election. So I just wanted to make that public, that, although it is a 2-year position, our DPAC person is not responding to our emails. And so right now we currently don't have a DPAC rep. And so we're going to have to work on doing that so we can have meetings. All of our schools except for one, and we're working on that one, have PACs, and they've gone through their PAC election. So we're ready to do that, but we may have to open up another election for our central DPAC support for the DLT. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the Stay Safe, Stay Open initiative, answer any questions the DLT may have about the testing that's happening and the work that we're doing as a city in terms of keeping our schools safe and also open during the current COVID spike. And then I wanted to propose an SLT training date. Thank you for those of you who filled out the survey, but now we're in the middle of a little bit of craziness, and then Gus will talk about his agenda as well. But to start, I'm going to turn it over to Shirley. And Shirley, do you need to share your screen, or do you want Lewis to put it up for you?
I've shared it. I practiced.
Okay.
I got it. I'm going to put it on there right now.
Lewis, can she share? Does she have?
No, I did. I practiced.
Okay.
I mean, I think I saw it. I had
She
practiced
shared.
just
She
for.
shared. She shared earlier in the meeting.
Okay.
It should be coming up.
Yep, we see it.
Okay. All right. Go. Happy New Year, everybody. The slide starts off where changes are coming. Some will be big, most will be small, all will be good. The changes are already happening, but it just all applies to this new year too, because we have a new mayor, we have new chancellor, we have new administration. So changes are here, more changes are to come. But these changes for the A660 were voted in unanimously by PEP on November 17th. So when it comes to the responsibilities of PAPTAs, they must remember that they are autonomous. They are self-determination, must be by the rule and not the exception. They are regulated by the A660 and their bylaws, but decisions that are made are run by membership. So the A660 has been, the last time it was updated was January 19, 2017. So November 7th, I think it has the November 18th of 2021 is the updated changes to the A660. And we're going to go over what it means for PAPTAs. So the first main, and I feel like it's like one of the most, well, this is the second one, but this is also included the way we meet. I think that was the most profound changes to the A660. It addresses the needs of the parent of the membership of the parents and the teachers if it's a PTA, but it also increase engagement, involvement, the parent voice, more people can participate. And what it means is that the way PAPTAs can meet now is a choice. It no longer has to be in person. Now they have the choice of making it virtual, hybrid, or in person, or they can rotate. It doesn't have to be, you have to choose one format. You can rotate each month on how they meet, but it has options. We have choices, and we have seen because of the pandemic response to the pandemic, a lot more are participating. A lot more parents are being engaged, and not just at the PAPTAs, but the SLTs, etc. Because it's more convenient. This is the way the world is going. More technology. Another major change is that now if a 3K or pre-K program is in the school district or in the school under the DOE, those parents are eligible for membership of the PAPTA. Prior to that, the regs said K to 12. Now, so that means if the 3K or pre-K has a DBN number, that means they're part of ATS. They are part of those parents in those schools who has 3K pre-K are now eligible for membership for the PAPTA. And we know that there's no application as long as you have a child in the school, all parents are members of their association. So we're allowed to use, DOE love their acronyms. So VRP is the virtual remote platform. So wherever we see this in the regs, Okay, meetings held virtually. So the virtual remote platform, that means either like today we're on Meet, not Meet, Microsoft Teams, there's Zoom, there's Google Meets, there's WebEx. So the PA Association will decide on how they will meet virtually, what platform they will use. But my suggestion is we all have a DOE email, and I mean we meaning PAPTAs and president's councils. We all going to after these regs have to use them in regards to financials, so we might as well take advantage of the free Zoom that comes with having the DOE Microsoft account. And Microsoft account, we talk about the schools at nyc.gov. Now, the voting privileges has been established for virtual platform when the pandemic first started, and we have virtual meetings. Voting privileges, with the exception of elections, were not extended to include on the virtual platform, but now they are. So, so if people are virtually, votes can, business can go on as prior as before, and is one of the is functions regularly whether we're in person or virtual when it comes to voting. Now elections. Now this is elections is the only difference for election meetings is that you must choose. The association must choose whether it's in person or virtual. And the idea behind that is because first, it makes it easier for the school. If we have a hybrid meeting, the school would have to ensure there's someone to certify voters in person and someone else on the virtual platform to make it conducive and easy until we get the hang of it. Right now, the election meetings, the association has to choose whether they're going to conduct election meetings in person or they're going to use the virtual remote, a virtual remote platform to have elections, which we've been doing for the last two cycles, having elections virtually. I feel that most people probably will go back in person so you don't have to create the unique verification codes, et cetera, when it comes to the virtual meetings. Notice of election. So now when with the choice of the format, how the meeting is being held on the 10-day, minimum 10-day notice, you must indicate what kind of meeting it will be. Is this going to be in person? Is this going to be hybrid? If it's going to be virtual, and where? So if it's in person, let's say it's good in the school auditorium. If it's hybrid, school auditorium and on Zoom. And of course, if it's virtual, it's on Zoom. That must be indicated on the notification.
So Shirley, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So those decisions, although they're fluid, is there an advanced requirement?
All those decisions should be directed by the membership. The membership should be driving those decisions. It should be very few executive board. I always suggest that you must I did the presentation on the hybrid. If you don't have those equipment or necessary equipment to have an effective meeting, then hybrid meeting wouldn't be a choice,
Right.
for the association.
I guess I'm asking more of like, was I correct in understanding that you said like it could change monthly, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so is there a limit, like for elections or change in bylaws or whatever, you have to give 10 days notice? Is there a notice that you have to let the membership know what platform, whether it'll be live or virtual, like or hybrid? Is there a
Well,
time limit?
no. The conversation should be held with the association, and
Mm-hmm.
as a group decide. I'm going to give an example of my school. Right, we had a conversation in October. Um, Going forward, whether we decided like for the winter months we're going virtual, right? When it becomes warm, we'll do hybrid meetings. But we did in November, we did a hybrid meeting to practice to make sure we had the necessary equipment, a trial run, we sort of say. So when we go hybrid, it's seamless, right? We already did a practice
Yep.
run, but this was in a conversation that we had at a meeting. So we decided for the whole year,
Okay.
ahead of time. the reg says you must determine how you meeting in your bylaws. So the conversation would be more feasible if you going forward, do a plan, which months you want to do virtual, which month. But you could also put in there via weather conditions or school closing. If if it was scheduled to be in person or hybrid, it'll be completely virtual. This is
Right.
all the conversation that the association should be having. And of course, also working along with the principal or the SLT, because we use, if we're doing hybrid meetings or in person, you need to work with the school as well, and see if it's feasible, conducive. So conversation, communication, transparency is always a key to everything, but it'll be very important here so everybody's on the same page going forward.
Okay, thank you.
References to city side. Okay, so yes, now we're all aware that the education councils, those elections used to be only the core members or mandatory members of the PAPTAs. Now anything that has to do with that has been removed from the A660 because all families now are voting in for the education councils across the city. Uh, so like I just mentioned, the bylaws must indicate how and where they will host their meetings. And this is very also important because to do amendment on the bylaws, except for A660, when that changed, that's an immediate change and has to occur. But in general, what to amend a bylaws is a minimum of a 2-month process. All right, the first month is to discuss the proposed changes, the second month to actually vote on those proposed changes. But here in this case with the A660, you have your conversation. Everyone must be updating their bylaws to be in compliance to the new changes of the A660. And again, we discussed this again. The membership will decide on how, when, where, and how they will conduct the monthly general membership and executive board meetings. So this is important. Quorum is still 2 executive board and 6 parent members for the associations. But for a hybrid meeting, at least 1 executive board member must be in attendance on the school property, on the premises, if it's hybrid. So, of course, virtually everyone is there virtually. So 2 executive board, 6 parents. In person, because everybody has in person, same thing, 2 executive board, 6 parents. But with the hybrid, at least 1 executive board member must be on the school premises for a hybrid meeting for quorum.
Now, Shirley, I'm sorry, did they say
No.
why is that to accept parents?
Yes, the idea behind that is, again, if we're having a hybrid meeting, it's the PAPTAs. You need someone there to greet the parents, sign-in sheet. Someone has to be there to set up the virtual remote platform, because the computer that is going to be used and the screen for everyone to see, because it's one meeting, not 2 separate meetings. Someone has to be there from the executive board. And they did not dictate who it should be. It doesn't have to be the president all the time. They can rotate who's in person. In actual at the meeting, they all can be in person, but one of them has to be in there physically, they're in person. Someone has to help set up, make sure the setup for the hybrid meeting is correct. Again, going back to those equipment, having a computer with internet access, speakers, camera, sign-in sheet, and just good practice to greet parents and guests who are coming into the meeting.
Now I have just one other question. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, and then I know Francis has a question too, Shirley. So I know that PTAs have money that they can draw from to purchase the computer equipment, but President's Council not necessarily. So was there a discussion about that? I mean,
Well,
I
the
know
discussion was that the school is going to provide those equipment to do the hybrid meetings. The school should already provided a computer and a laptop with internet access. They should have that already. This is the idea that the school is going to what you call it, purchase these equipments for the PAPTAs. Um, but it also should be being used for the SLTs as well as for the hybrid meetings.
Is that the same
Central,
for President's Council though? Because then that would mean me, so I have to ask for money.
yeah, President's Council. See, that's where, see, this is where it's difficult because the
Yeah.
President's Council, yes, it would be the same because whoever's providing President's Council with the laptop and internet, they also will should be providing, with those equipment necessarily to have an effective hybrid meeting, as well.
Okay.
Yes, it's very similar. I know that Central was looking into, before the change of administration, or like, finding a vendors and purchasing equipment by district so that each school will have it. You will know more about that but I know that was they were looking to make sure that, to make all PAPTAs, President's Council, equal. 'Cause if they want to do hybrid meetings, you need those necessary equipment to be effective.
Yep.
For these
Okay.
meetings. So yes, the schools should help provide it. For my school in particular, my principal is just a tech geek, and he's like, "This is the way of the future," and he went and bought that last year equipment, and we were doing hybrid meetings um, since June for the school leadership team. So that same equipment that we used for that, we used for the PAPTA in November.
All right, Francis, I see you have your hand up.
I just have a question hey, good morning, Shirley. How are
Good
you?
morning, Francis. That's good.
If it's one person in the hybrid, the parent, so this should be one on the remote?
Yes, and that one person or whoever is on virtual platform don't literally have to be virtually at home. They could be in the building as well, but they're the ones on the platform. They are signed into the meeting virtually.
So they're monitoring so it's one and then the rest of the quorum requirements.
Yes, 1 and 1.
Okay. And then as far as the money for the laptops, Danielle, we have money in the President's Council from the dues that weren't used. So I'm just putting it out
Yeah,
there.
no, thank you, Francis. I know, but it was my understanding that District 25, there's not that many President's Councils that do collect dues. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure.
Well, now we know why we need to continue to collect dues.
You know what? I mean, that's something that you guys might want to bring up at the next President's Council meeting to make sure that everybody's handed it in. I don't know if, because you guys run that.
Well, this year we decided not to collect because we weren't doing in person, and because we had, a sufficient amount of money that was just laying there. That's why we decided not to this year. But going forward, we're going to continue in case things arise and we need money
yeah, and you know what? I'm going to escalate it also, because while they just approved it, maybe there is discussion, like Shirley said, about getting money for the districts to make sure you guys have the equipment. So, all right, Gus, you have a question for Shirley?
Yeah, and it's actually directly connected to what you were just talking about. Based on my old experience, the whole funding issue, the fiscal issue, is based on, for parent PTAs, all parent organizations have to follow the SOPM, the old handbook. I don't know, how long it's been since anybody looked at that and looked at those regulations. Given the changes in terms of over the years with the parents. So that's an issue you might want to look at. And I know that there was always a need for ongoing training for parent entities in the use of funds, because parents are not always familiar with the SOPM and the regulations, and they sometimes get themselves into trouble with that. Related to that is always the 1% set aside, which we've talked about over and over again, including at this DLT, that we get questions at every SLT training related to that. In the olden days, the Director of Funded Programs, which I was one in District 30, we had a team who would review every 1% set aside plan for
Right.
every school. That is no longer done as far as I know. So that might be something to look into.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to say that too, Gus. I can escalate that because if Shirley and Francis would like to make that suggestion, and then we could also talk to a PAC rep about making the suggestion if parent engagement money can be used, which is, you know, part of the Title I allocations, to buy this equipment. And you're right, for training for the people that will be running it on how to set up. Like, yes, the school can support, but you know, maybe PTAs want their own money because, and their own equipment, because when you, if you think about it, if you're opening up VRP and hybrid models, you're opening up engaging with parents in different ways. So that might be something. I'm going to ask Karen Moser to escalate that also. And Shirley and Francis, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, I mean, you have access to the chancellor and, you know, the new administration. The whole fiscal aspect and the whole structure of it needs, in my opinion, to be looked at, because when years ago the funded programs office structure was dismantled, I don't think that the details going forward were put into place. Also, I want to remind you of something that I did tell this DLT, and maybe you can follow up on. Andrea Ferguson at one point told us that they were going to give the parents a vendor list, remember, of approved vendors that people could pull from. Um,
Yes.
I had participated in some meetings with that, but then it sort of, you know, with COVID and everything else, it went by the wayside. Maybe there's an opportunity in the future to look at that again, because I know parents felt that that would be very helpful to them if they had some, you know, list to choose from with descriptions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Shirley, sorry, bringing up a lot
No,
of questions, a lot of learning happening through this.
no, that's
Thank you.
okay. So the last piece in regards to meetings is that, which was already part of the virtual guidance, is to have the virtual platform, the virtual meetings and the hybrid meetings be recorded, and to be recorded as purposes as references for the minutes, right? So it's advised, it's not mandatory, that these meetings be recorded. Now we're going to go into the financial piece of the changes that were made to the A6660. So during the pandemic, if those online banking was only used for statement purposes, to view statements, balances for the associations, changes to amendments have given more financial leeway in the use of online banking and debit cards. So using online banking, not only just to look at your statements to see what the balances are and transactions, you could actually use online banking to pay vendors through the online banking system of your banking institution. You cannot use third parties. So you can use online banking, set up bill pay, and pay vendors instead of writing the check. Now, the check is still the first and primary means of paying vendors. To be clear. If you're now able to use the physical check, then the next step is online payment to do an electronic check, and the last step use is the debit card. So the bank card and debit card now, President PAs, PTAs, and President's Council could now have bank cards. They were not allowed to have it at all to pay vendors in certain circumstances, right? Those circumstances is they don't accept checks physically or electronically. Then you're using the debit card or the bank card to pay vendors. But at no time ever are you allowed to withdraw money, use it to withdraw money from the ATM machines, or use a withdrawal slip as prior to before. You never dealing with cash at all. So we're going to go into what it actually means. What does this mean? The term in-person refers on school premises. Again, virtual remote platform meaning Zoom and WebEx or Google. So this is going over in detail. I went over the changes. This is what it means, but I think we went over there, so I'm going to skip this. We went into details. We're going to go into the bank accounts. So online banking. So I had mentioned it briefly. So in order to use online banking, well, in order to use for all your financials, you must use the DOE email account that was assigned to PAPTA for President's Council. There's no exception to this rule. I'm going to go back. One of the theories about this is transfer of records. A lot of times passwords or user IDs are not passed or transferred as they should. People forget the password. When you use the DOE email, the DIIT department can go back and reset the password for PAPTAs and President's Council. Again, the means for this again is when it comes to financials, people are not, again, passwords requirement for online banking, etc. If you use the DOE email, and now we don't have a choice, you have to use it. They can reset the password so it doesn't cripple PAPTAs because they don't have access to their online banking or passwords to their email accounts. And this is the reasoning behind that you must use your DOE issued email account. When we use the debit card, there is a disbursement form now you must fill out for all uses of that debit card. And that disbursement form is to maintain that, I call it balance in checks, or the 2-point verification. When you have signed physical checks, you must have 2 signers. So just like you need 2 signers when you're using the electronic form of payment, whether it's through online banking or the debit card, you'll fill out this disbursement form where 2 people will sign the approval of the transaction to maintain that balance in checks, dual authority. So we're talking about online banking. Most banking institutions usually like to link all relationships. So if you happen to bank at the bank where your association and you're a signer on the account, you must not allow them. You must tell them do not link personal accounts to the association accounts. This is prohibited. So there's no accident of accidentally transferring money from the association's account to your personal account. It's just do not do it. This is absolutely a must. Do not link personal bank account. Is prohibited. I'm going to give a visual example. I bank at Chase. Queens High School President's Council, bank at Chase. Believe all the signers actually bank at Chase, and their first instinct is to link all the relationship, all the signers to this account. And you have to tell them, no, this is separate, standalone. You cannot link the person. Again, it's for the associations and the signers protection, so there's no accidental transfer into one account from the associate's account to the personal account. Everything is separate. We're going to go more into the debit cards. I'm just going to put everything on the screen here. Again, bank card, debit cards are strictly to pay vendors when they are not allowing physical checks or electronic checks. There are vendors who is just strictly plastic, right? They don't accept cash, they don't accept checks. So this is the reality of the world we're turning into. But again, that debit card is the last resort for that. The debit card transactions must be approved by general membership. And you are using these debit cards. Any expenses from the PAPTA's President's Council must have general membership approval anyway. Any dollar amount, even if it's a penny, supposed to have the approval and general membership, and usually this is done with the proposed budget for the school year.
Shirley, I have a
The-
question. This is
uh-huh.
Shirley.
Uh-huh.
So, I know before we couldn't get access to the checks in the school, and that's why we needed to pay these vendors. But you just said something that now vendors don't want to have a check, or but that's always been the way schools pay is through check, because it's all traceable and it's easier for us to read in our financials. So when we're allowed to do this, do we have to have a piece of paper stating that they did not accept the check and that's why we're doing, or they can just make that decision and do it? Because if that's the case, it's just going to keep doing whatever's easier for them.
No, that's a good question. You're the first one who asked that question because I think this is going back to the honor system. There are certain vendors, especially if you're ordering online, don't accept checks or electronic checks. You have to use the debit card. Um, it will be good practice, I think, to do that. So it's trust for anybody who has questions, especially the membership. I would do that, but you have to fill out that disbursement form. You can't just do that transaction and not fill out the disbursement form. Again, it has to be signed by two of the authorized signers or of the bank account. You can't just take the debit card and do whatever.
Yeah, and then as far as the like all the banks have to be, everything online has to be directed to the bank account. That goes for PayPal, GoFundMe's, and all that, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go into that, but when it comes to receiving funds, the associations and the president's council can get it from PayPal, can get it from third party. That's receiving. But when it's paying out expenses to vendors, cannot use third party um, companies, PayPal and stuff. That's why you have the online banking. If they don't accept physical checks to pay vendors, or we're in a pandemic like are we currently in, and you don't have access to the physical checks, and then you have the debit card as the last result. So expenses, money coming out of the account is never use a third party. And I'm going to go into it. There's other restrictions as well besides
Shirley, I think the important part to reiterate is um, PTA's exec boards used to have a limit of money that they could spend, right, before it goes to general membership.
okay.
And now anytime you use a bank or debit card, you have to even if it's $5, right? You have to present that to your general membership,
Well,
right?
they should be presenting it as the proposal of expense
Uh-huh.
prior to the school year and get general membership approval. If those expenses are approved uh, already, you don't have to go back and get membership approval because they already had approved it. Suggestion is on that proposed budget for membership um, is to combine, let membership know that we will be paying physically by checks, electronically, or by the debit card, depending on the vendor. So
Mm.
everyone has that understanding from the very beginning, um, how things are going to pay. Now, if things come up, this the bylaws should determine what is expenditures, where like let's say you have up to 250 for emergency expenses, and the bylaws will dictate what is considered an emergency. um, Outside of that, the executive board must come to membership. If they don't follow, if it wasn't pre-approved during the proposed budget or defined under emergency expense, they must come to membership before spending money and
You
get the
know,
approval.
you know, I think this is really important in terms of for high school president's council and Francis also for president's council, because we should get behind talking to PTAs about best practices and systems, like setting them up right away, making sure. I mean, the debit card that we use in the DOE has so many checks and balances that I stopped using the debit. Like I really truly didn't even get one this year. But like if we look at it to say like a debit card should be used as a last resort, like you said, we have to go through all these, checks and balances, but also like there's nothing to say, Shirley, right? That, you know, president's councils can't set up like audit times for their PTAs, right? To audit the debit card transactions.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what I'm saying?
yeah, there's no restriction on that. I suggest to membership of the PAPTA because the membership can request audit as well. They can set up an audit themselves,
Yeah,
um
yeah, that's what I'm
um
saying.
Um,
yes, to make sure everything's up and up. So to avoid, and we're going to get there, there's a certain dollar amount where the principal and face must be notified if they use a debit card. We're going to get there, but it's 5,000. There's a form that um, the association and I guess President's Council will, to the superintendent will if it's good, if you're using your debit card and it exceeds $5,000, you must notify the principal in writing and face prior to actually doing the transaction.
I just
But
wanna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shirley.
no, Francis, go ahead. This is
I just want to say that I think it would be like what you mentioned, good practice, Danielle, that we should put in a cover letter. So when we do these debit card transactions, we write down reason for using debit card. So it kind of gives us the legitimate reason of using it and not just because it's easier, because
right.
that's what's
Yeah.
going to happen. So
Well,
it just,
I'm sorry, Francis. That disbursement form is
That's what
exactly what it does.
mhm.
You have to explain why you're using and what is it for. So
yeah,
that
that goes
accompanies each
just for
transaction.
debit cards or for anything.
That is for the debit card,
Oh, okay.
specifically
Okay,
for
so
the
that's
debit card.
basically, yeah, that's pretty. Another question. What if a PTA wants to order Costco online and obviously they don't accept checks, they can just order on a debit card. How would that work?
Well, see, first you have to make sure if they accept electronic check. If they could accept the electronic check, then you're going to pay them that way before going straight to the debit card. And I'm going to go into that more because make sure you to talk about subscriptions and reoccurring debits, which are not allowed on the debit card. Um, is the next couple of points coming up. But I want to go back with that disbursement form. It says it's specifically for debit cards, but I would do it also for electronic checks as well, just for good practices for bookkeeping and transparency as well to fill it out if you're not doing the physical check. So here we're going to go. So third-party applications, we discussed this. This also includes mobile phone wallets and other electronic devices that store the debit cards, direct donations, out-of-pocket reimbursements, cash withdrawals from ATMs, receiving cash back or cash refund from ensuing transactions. And I want to go back to out-of-pocket reimbursement. So if membership buys something for a fundraiser, and you need to the association or President's Council needs to reimburse them, it has to be a physical check. No, it has to be by the physical checks. No ifs, ands, or buts. We understand why the cash withdrawals, but receiving cash back. So let's say we use a debit card to purchase something and we're returning the item or items or some of the thing, and they want to give you a cash refund or a cash back. That's absolutely no. You'll never deal with cash. Even if it's a penny, it goes back on the card. When it goes back on the card, it goes back to the association or President's Council's checking account. You are never dealing with cash. We are not literally physically dealing with cash unless we're doing a fundraiser in the school and we're taking in cash from students, teachers, or whoever are buying our merchandises. But when it comes to returns, we're never taking it in any form of cash.
Now, Shirley, are third-party mobile applications like Venmo also? You can't use Venmo.
Yes, not to pay. Also, Uber. Some people get reimbursed for taxis. Can't put it on a mobile wallet to automatically pay. That's absolutely no. Third parties applications are to be used to receive funds, not to pay out funds. That's the
So I
summary of
think
it
like
all.
even out-of-pocket reimbursements, all of that. So PTAs cannot use Venmo
They cannot use Venmo as to make payments. They
to make
can use
payments.
Venmo to receive
To
payments.
receive. Okay, got it.
hmm
Learning so
So
much today.
violation of this is can result in immediate removal of an officer or prior or any future position in a parent organization by the chancellor or designee. It's not worth it. And I'm just to speak to the choir, but when we speak to our PAPTAs, it's just not worth it. You know, it's the association's funds, it's the council's funds. Just, do what we need to do for transparency. And the purpose of this is what? To get resources so we can enhance the educational experience of our children and our students. That is the goal of our associations, besides parent voice. But when it comes to the fundraising and dealing with cash, we're buying resources that will help in the educational experience at the school or the district or the borough level of the parent organization thereof. So it's not worth it. To violate these rules, especially financial. And I'm going to say that the PEP was very hesitant with this financial piece because with the debit card, because it's opening up into people doing shady stuff.
Now,
But as going forward, though, as again like the pandemic, it is necessary that we're moving away from cash. We're
now
moving
here's
away from checks.
here's
So
I don't know if this is in the chancellor's reg or if it's just part of good practice, but we know with online banking comes passwords, right? So there would have to be something in place where the person leaving would have to give their password. So a recommendation could be like, don't pick a password that you use all the time at your own, family, because I think that could be a problem, right? Where if
well,
a new PTA doesn't have a password, they'll get locked out of an account.
well, that's the whole situation. That's why you must use the DOE email. So if the PAPTAs at this time are not, because the back office, the tech
Uh-huh.
office, will
Yep.
reset the password. So if
Okay.
for the DOE, so you able to get in your email, then you'll be able to get into your online banking and change the password. And for best practices, I encourage to change the password every when every new officers come in, new board,
Mm-hmm.
new is that's the best practice to change the passwords. Or not, but that is the sound reasoning behind having the DOE email account attached to financials. Whether it's your PayPal, your online banking, etc. If nobody gets the password or they forget the password, they can reset it and you can create a new password. And that's the whole reasoning behind it. But yes, the user ID and password is part of the transfer of records from one executive board to the next. But again, that is the reasoning. I've heard that parents actually refuse to give passwords up, not remembering that especially when it comes to the financials, it's not your money. But sometimes parents create their own email. So now an association don't have their particular email. So now all associations at President's Council has a DOE email, and nobody owns that but the actual association. So that is to, like you said, with the passwords and stuff. Now with all these changes, PAPTA's President's Council. Right now, the PAPTA's has the what you call it, the bylaws template that they can use to update their bylaws. Um, so these changes is automatically changes to individual bylaws. They must be updated. For best practices, it's the Chancellor Regs change. So the change must occur to your bylaws, but for best practices, um, treat it as is a proposed amendment. So everybody meaning membership, understand why we're making the changes. First, they understand what are the changes are and why we're making these changes to the bylaws, which must happen. So resources, you could go to the DOE website And right now, the bylaws template is only for PAPTAs right now. It's done. President's Councils hasn't been done yet. And it's still only in English. I thought by now it will be in multiple language, but the updated bylaws template, which I always recommend to use because PAPTA's individual bylaws will be in compliance with the Chancellor regs and not in contradictory if you use the template. Um, And that's it. I think that is into my presentation. And we'd answered questions in between. I'm going to stop presenting. I
Shirley,
went
thank you
pretty
so
quick.
much.
No, thank you. You know.
Does anybody have any other questions for Shirley? Yes, as always, Shirley, we appreciate your leadership and giving us firsthand information that, around this, because we know that a lot of our PTAs and principals will be asking questions as this rolls out, just in terms of enforcement. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirley.
No problem. My pleasure. I love this group.
Feelings mutual. All right, so Lewis, if you could just put the minutes up. So we just heard back from Mary that she will not be at our meeting today. So we'll just. Oh, did she?
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Mary. How are you?
Wonderful.
Yeah, I was sorry to hear. So if we could put the minutes up, and go through that. Mary, I'm going to text you something really quickly, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Shirley, you have your hand up. Do you have any changes?
Where it says Gus briefly discussed Chancellor's regs, I believe it's A655, not the A660, but I could be wrong.
Yes, you're correct. I think it's me that
Right.
keeps getting confused between both of them.
655.
Yes, make that change, Lewis, please.
The 655 is the SLT, right?
Is the SLT DLT? Yes.
When I make these changes, do they have to go anywhere?
No, you just change it on the public document.
Oh, so Jan doesn't need to put them
No,
somewhere?
no.
Okay.
Janet sends me the minutes, and then
Okay.
I make changes and send them to you.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna
these
put
are
them
the
online.
final. That's
Okay.
the final
I
document.
wasn't
Yeah.
sure if they had to be filed somewhere. Okay. Yep, you got it.
Yeah, Louis, send them to me also because I have to file them in the central archive.
Yeah, everything, Gus, will be on our website. You know, our DLT website.
Right.
He's just going to make the corrections and upload this one instead. Hi, Lewis, you could scroll. Is that it?
When I update the file, it shot me. It refreshed it.
Okay.
What was I up to? This part, right? Yeah.
Oh, look, Shirley, I got that section right. A660. You could scroll, Lewis.
I think
Okay. Are we in consensus for approval of the minutes? Any changes, recommendations? Okay. So minutes are approved. Excellent. I want to go a little bit out of order because one of the things that I think is really important, I don't want to forget anything, but I do want us, so I'll let, Gus, Mike, and Bill know, like, we're really looking for a hard 11 o'clock kind of meeting end day because it's a little bit crazy, I know, out there. So just very quickly, I want to turn the meeting over to Dr. McDonald for her announcement to the DLT. Hi, Mary.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm home. I'm injured.
Oh,
Oh
my goodness.
Still on the ice chasing the dog. So I just want to let everyone know that this will be my last DLT meeting. I am retiring as of, February. So it's been a pleasure working with all of you. And I do wish all of you much luck and success in all the work that you do on behalf of the students of District 25 and of Queens. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And I do believe that Teresa Mashar, principal of PS 185, Junior High 185, will be taking my place when I'm gone. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mary. And
Congrats, Mary.
yes,
Congrats.
congratulations. Well deserved. 20 years as principal of PS 209.
Congratulations.
3 years in the city. So it's been wonderful, wonderful run. So
we wish you well, and thank you for all that you've done as part of the DLT. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, and because we have 3 big presentations, I wanted to also ask any of our constituencies if they have any announcements. CEC, DC 37, UFT, is there okay, Joe?
No, DC 37 is good.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be quick. The CEC had a special meeting last Wednesday where we opted to change the format of our meetings, and we will now be operating on a hybrid schedule. And we have our January meeting is scheduled for tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. You can either join us in person or remotely, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else? UFT? No?
Can I add something to?
Sure.
This is Shirley.
Hi, Shirley.
Joe didn't mention it, but I was going to mention it. That new chancellor's regs D210 was approved last month. Anti-discrimination, anti-harassment. Also, whenever we have our D25 meetings, we have our Queens High School President's Council. So we have our meeting tonight, later tonight. And I wanted to talk about the health and safety, the consent forms. It's just not enough. And this is across the city and this is across all grades. It's not enough parents opting in to consent. It's the same kids gaining. Now they added the vaccinated, but still, it's still a small pool. You know, a school of 4,500 and you have less than 100 consent forms doesn't give a real accurate picture of what is going on in that school. And I've been asked, and had to ask the chancellor, because I met with the chancellor at CPAC on Friday briefly on Friday afternoon. And I don't know what you think about an opt-out option instead of the opt-in, because a lot of times parents say they did sign the form, they don't know where to hand it in, electronic technology issue. Maybe it'll be more facetious to have an opt-out option when it comes to the consent forms versus the opt-in. So we can have a more accurate picture, because like I said, and then it's also not conducive, especially for high school students, when it's the same student and they miss the entire period, the same subject over and over again. It's not beneficial for them as well either, let alone the whole picture of the school.
I'm wondering if there's any discussion about teenagers being able to choose to test medically. Like, I know when I take my teenagers to the doctor, they choose whether or not I'm going to be in the room, even though I pay the bill. but that is in terms of HIPAA. I mean, maybe that could be part of a conversation, because we know that there's been some middle school students who've asked to test and we don't have their consent form. So then we just say to the kids, you know, you need to have your parents, you know, get us a consent form. But I don't know what the rules are if it's 18, because then you could have any senior. I don't know. That might be discussion to happen at the high school level, Shirley, because I was thinking about that for my own kids, you know, just around can, you know, that certain age of consent medically for that. And I agree with you. I think, you know, I kind of took for granted testing. When I hear about what's happening in Chicago, I was like, what do you mean there's no testing? New York City has done a really great job in terms of testing opportunities, right? So now we have the kits that we're distributing to those students that are in close contact, plus we have the random testing. But I definitely think there needs to be some sort of deeper conversation with the parent community, because what's starting to happen is, there are certain people that don't mind that their child is tested once a week, right? But there are other people who do mind, like, I want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of the stay safe, stay open, but I don't want my child tested every week because other people aren't contributing as well. So they wind up pulling out of the program. So I've had a couple of conversations with parents around that too. So I agree with you that it should definitely be a parent community conversation about, I don't necessarily know about opt out more than opt in, because some parents are busy and they don't know, right? Or if families that speak languages other than English, they don't know about opting out, so and we had that issue even with the kindergarten grant opportunity. Like, some parents didn't know to opt out, but they didn't want to do it. So when it comes to testing, that might be problematic, but we could definitely campaign for more people to volunteer to do testing, because I agree with you. The same people are being tested over and over again. But if you could ask that question at the high school level, I'm just curious if students are allowed to make that decision on their own as they do in the doctor's office. I'm not sure.
It goes from, no, the parents have to consent for the testing. That's but from each school is different. But like, I'm gonna use my school for we almost have 88% of our students vaccinated, right? So when they started the testing back again, the vaccinated weren't getting tested, but now because of the surge in Omicron, everybody's getting tested who consented to test, right? And I was at District 26 DLT, and the community schools had brought this up. It's not enough people consenting, let alone the resources. Like, there's too many two different places for people to get information, and they had consolidated and they created a flyer, which I had shared out, where the link to consent, where to go here, where to get resources, where to get tested, et cetera, et cetera. But the theme across the city is not enough people consenting. There's parents or guardians consenting for their child to be tested, and the parents who did consent are frustrated that it's their child all the time because the pool is
Correct.
so small, which is understandable as well.
Yep. Yeah. So I think we should engage in those discussions. You're absolutely right, because we do have the resources as a city. We should take advantage of them so we can stay safe and stay open. Francis, I was actually going to call on you anyway. I don't know if you have a question, or I was going to call on you as
question
President.
on this because I know about the opt-in or opt-out. It would be easier, but a lot of parents don't get to read what's going on in the schools, and then this is a little evasive when you're going into someone's nose and stuff. So I think we'd have more problems that way, because parents would be mortified if they didn't give permission and someone took their child and COVID tested them. I think the bigger question is, what if parents don't want this testing in schools? Like, what if that's the reason why they're not signing the papers? Are they not seeing the papers, or they just don't want the testing? Are we listening to those views too?
Yeah, but I think one of the things that Shirley is bringing up is it should be a local community conversation that may be facilitated by the PTAs, President's Council, to really talk to parents, in conjunction with building leaders around the importance of testing in order to stay open, right? So, and I think I went into this pandemic, and I say this all the time as a joke. I went into this pandemic thinking I know everything, and now I realize I know nothing, right? So I think it's really about conversations and what are the things that we want for our schools, right? We know remote is not a possibility. We know that the impact of learning that has happened because of this pandemic, I hear what the mayor and the chancellor are saying. Like, we have to keep our schools open. The social, we're seeing now as kids are returning to school, the social concerns that are happening. I told a story the other day. My daughter's in 11th grade. She never took a Regents exam. That's unheard of to me. And I'm not just talking about testing, but I'm talking about experience. Like, think about like the thinking that went into just like the preparation of that content to take a Regents exam. There's a lot of things that our kids are missing by not staying in school. So then the question becomes, and that's where I'm saying, like, we really all need to talk at the local level about what are some of the things we can do to stay safe and stay open, right? We had some parents that were refusing to test where their kids were exposed. And we were saying to them, if you do that, technically you should fail the health screener, right? But we're also not chasing after people to get the test results from them. We're giving them tests when they're exposed because we want people to stay safe and make sure that they're not sick and they're not getting their family members sick. So I do believe that it's really important to take the practices and the services that are being offered by the city, and then speak at the local level to talk about the importance of what that means to stay safe and stay open. And I think it can go in a lot of different directions. Like you're saying, Francis, we may have schools that, more than half the school, the parents are opting out of testing. The problem now is that we do know that it spreads very quickly and very easily, and we've seen that, right? We're seeing it right now. So I think it's really important for parent leadership too to kind of facilitate this conversation. I was talking to Joe the other day. Many parents are very black and white about this, where it's kind of, I either want remote, right, or I want to stay open. And so there are those different perspectives within the same school, right? Now, I hear them at the district level, he hears them at the district level, but it's really more about bringing that into your school community so you can engage perhaps as your SLT and your PTAs and your UFT, just in working together to say, like, all right, let's talk about what we can do to make sure that we're staying safe and staying open, right?
And Shirley, I don't know if it helps at all, but remember when we distribute those at-home test kits to students, and they have to take them to continue to report to school. So there's a lot more testing going on than the in-school PCR testing that happens once a week.
Yeah, no, yeah. My school, my daughter got it Tuesday, and then the entire school got it Wednesday. That's how spread the cases are. The entire school, 2,000 got it on the Tuesday, and then she came back home Wednesday again with another test. The entire school got it because it's double up. And the high schools is like different because it's individual programming. So you had 12 students tested positive.
There's lots of movement. I know.
And
they're everywhere,
2,000
right?
students, right? So if that increases,
so if you think about that, then the whole school was tested last week.
Yeah, yes.
If everyone's doing what they're supposed to do.
Yes,
correct. I have
it's
a question.
honor system.
Well, it's not even. They also have to respond to the health screening properly, which says, "I took the test." So
that's the question I have on the take-home test. Like, do you take? I was not sure. Do you take a picture of the negative result and then send it back?
You don't have to. We don't ask for evidence. Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Well,
it's really about.
But if you when I try to take a picture of it, it does text it somewhere. It's
you did the.
If you try to take a picture of the test, there's a little scan.
Yeah, there's a barcode.
And it says it texts somewhere. So where is it texting to?
They deactivated that. We'll ask about it. I know they deactivated it. I don't know where it's.
Yeah, that's from the manufacturer of the test. It has nothing to do with the DOE.
Yeah, that was just a little bit of piece of information. I didn't know what.
But you don't. Yeah, that you don't have to. They do ask for confirmation of positive, but you don't have to show that you've taken the test. It just is real.
And then I didn't know. I put it in a little Ziploc bag. I'm like, do they bring it back? Just like. It was just like so weird.
Yeah, no, they don't have to. Right.
I didn't know what to do.
You have to just respond to the health screening.
Yeah, but Shirley, as of right now, just so you know, as we evolved, it's one test kit per week. for right now. I know the first week they were giving out like every time you were exposed, you got another test.
They get
So
two, Danielle.
right,
No, it's
one
one
test kit that
it's
has two tests in it.
tests.
So the expectation, if exposure, that, and Lewis, correct me because I know. So like if you get it on a Wednesday, the recommendation is that you take it within 24 hours of the exposure, and then 5 days later, unless you feel symptoms, then you should take it beforehand. So, so normally if students got something on Monday, and then what the question that we asked was within that 5 days, like on Thursday, if you were exposed again, you would get another test kit on Monday. But it's not a test kit every time you're exposed within a week, because that's what a lot of schools thought, and they were giving 5 or 6 kits out at once. So it's one test kit per week. Okay. Now, are there any other questions? Because I know that is one of the agenda items around stay safe, stay open. I know parents may have been asking a lot of questions.
Question, Danielle. It's in the whole scope of things, now that I don't know if we've reached the 70% vaccinated in the world. I don't know. It seems like we're very close. I don't understand that at one point, because even before COVID, we had stomach viruses. We had people that came to school sick. So this was a constant thing, and nobody ever checked to see if their kids were sick and still sent them to school. So as far as all these vaccinations, and we've gotten to a certain point, I mean, this COVID is never, ever going to go away. It's just going to keep trickling down into a common cold. So I guess my question is, what's the difference now? It's obviously different than 2 years ago. So is that going to change? I mean, we're not checking kids for stomach flus, which those are sometimes worse than, we're at this point where COVID is just minimized to a common cold. When are we going to stop getting so crazy about this is my question.
I always preface when people ask me questions like that to say, like, I'm not a medical provider, so I can't say that. What I do know as a lay person going through the pandemic, I see it getting better, right? I think because it's so new, we're hoping eventually we will be treating COVID the same way as we treat the flu and the stomach virus. But I think, with the Omicron, this was the first variant where people weren't getting very sick. And I also know that medicine is able to treat COVID differently than they were able to do it a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, so I think we're coming out of it. One of the things that I heard and saw, I keep talking about that commercial, that Geico commercial where they had the woman who lived through the 1919 pandemic, and she wasn't born until 1921, and she still was part of the pandemic. And I remember saying to myself, like, oh my goodness, is a pandemic 3 years? I think we thought that, it was just we're going to come out of it very quickly. And we're seeing now that it is taking time. I'm hopeful that we're at the end. And we're hearing that, we know from a lot of different resources out there, that this Omicron variant, although is highly contagious, many people are not getting as sick as in the past. So I think that's coming soon, Francis. I'm excited to hear what medical providers say, but I can't necessarily answer to when the world will say it's okay to treat it now as just a common cold. So, okay. Just to make sure, anyone else? All right. So, Gus, I'm going to turn this over to you, and then Mike, and then Bill.
Louis, should I share, or are you going to share the documents?
I can upload them for you guys. Do you know what file you want to start with?
I'm not going to do the PowerPoint. If you can get the checklist up, that's the Word document. Yeah.
So that one I can't upload.
Okay.
It's not a PDF. It's not a PowerPoint. Yeah, if you have it up, you can open it up.
Yeah. Let me see if I can just do this. Yeah.
Yep, we see it.
Okay.
Just open the file. Just open up the file.
Here it is. Okay, can you see that?
We still see just your desktop, so I'm not sure if you have it on another screen.
Yeah, I have
Just
it
drag it
on the other
drag
screen.
it over.
Drag it over. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
You see
Yep,
it
we
now?
see it. Looks
Excellent.
good. Yep.
Good. Okay. One of the things that I sent to the DLT is this checklist that Central made, which I think is useful for taking a look at the DCEP and seeing that all of the pieces are there and what the information should have. So it is complete for all the different sections, and there's a section for notes. So once we have our draft in place, I think it might be useful for all the DLT members to use this. I know I'll use it. I'm sure that the district team will use it to check on the different pieces of our DCEP and make sure that it's complete. So that's the one item that I wanted to mention. The other item that I want to mention is DocuSign. I'm not a big fan of DocuSign, but once we have a completed draft, what the procedure is that we're going to use DocuSign again for collecting DLT member signatures. And I know we have some new people, so I just wanted to remind everybody what it looks like. You will get an email from me. See where it says Henry Ramazzotti, sender's name? It'll be mine. And then what you have to do is you have to click on where it says review document. And then what you'll get is a screen that looks like this. You will find your name. There is something new that I had them create, a drop down, which has a lot of different categories, because as I pointed out to them, other than the standard categories, we have a lot of people who come to our DLT who not are always part of the regular titles. So you'll use the drop down and select the correct constituency, put in your name, and that'll constitute the electronic signature. Now, a couple of things about DocuSign, and this is for the district team. I have to make sure that I have an accurate email for every DLT member, their name, and the constituency they represent. I know I did get a listing at the beginning of the year, but there may have been some changes. So we need to check on that as we going forward.
Janet can send that to you. Janet, will you send that to Gus, please?
And the other thing is that, as in the past, what happens is my email goes to your spam sometimes. So I'm going to send out a regular email as well to tell you to look for it. If you don't see it, check your spam and see if it's in there. I'm also going to, based on previous experience, probably have to resend it. If you do it once, you don't have to do it again, but you may get it a second time if the machine sends it to you. So I know it's not the best, the easiest practice, but this is what we have to do in this remote context in terms of collecting DCP signatures. So that's on the technical side. I know that the district team has been working on the DCEP, and Mike and Danielle are going to talk about it shortly. One thing that I'm aware of is that the template will most likely change going forward once we finish the new one. The one that we're currently working on, that's not a surprise. I also have a similar DocuSign document and options for schools signature pages. They have not sent me a listing of CEP signature pages yet. All of your CEPs, by the way, have been approved, and they should be posted already or being posted on a rolling basis. Uh, Give it about a week, folks, and if you don't see a school CEP posted on the public iPlan website, please let me know, and I will find out why it's not posted and what's going on. In terms of the signature pages, that's a separate process from the approval process. I believe most schools have probably uploaded or did whatever they need to do for signature pages. I have an options guide with links that I can send out to schools. Danielle, I can send you that document just so you have it and the district team, and you and Mike have it, and Lewis, in case a school reaches out to you instead of me, so you have it as well. I'm sure that we'll get everything in place as we always do in terms of the CEPs. On the DCEP, we've done the parent engagement policy. The only piece other than the regular body of the DCEP that's still pending is updating the 100.11 plan based on the survey. But you are the only district, to my knowledge, in the city of New York that did your own survey. So you already have an updated document that is part of your DCEP. So you don't have to wait for the survey information, although it would be nice if we got it from FACE and we're able to look at the 100.11 plan with that information.
But
as
Gus,
well.
do we have to do the biennial survey as well, even though we did one last year?
Well, you did your own, but you have not done what FACE does is it sends out its own survey to all the SLTs. Right. So that's a separate item.
So Gus, what should that section include? Does that section remain blank until they complete that survey, until that survey is shared with us?
I believe what we did, and you and I can collaborate on this, is you did a whole presentation on what your district survey showed.
From last year, but that's not the official one. That's one that we did. So we should be filling it in with that information?
Yes, you can fill it in with that information. And depending on the timeline, I'm told that FACE is going to send out a survey. We're going to get the information. This is beyond us. This is a citywide, issue. But for District 25, since you have your own information, I would, update the document based on that, put it in, and if we get additional information, we could take it into account, or we can go with what we have.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And
We'll wait to see. Is it? Yeah.
Well, no, that's the section that I actually had a question about, because I did not fill that in without without knowing whether or not we were going to actually implement, the actual biennial review survey.
Yeah, I see no reason not to take the authentic information that you have already received to update the survey without the central survey information as well. I mean, your information is as valuable as what we'll get from the central survey, I think.
Yeah, same questions. I mean, the questions.
We copied it.
Right. And as I said, I commend you. You're the only district in the city of New York that did that on your own, as I told Central. So I think that, I don't want to take up a lot of time because I know time is of the essence. That's basically this SLT training that we're going to talk about, going forward. And the DCEP, we're supposed to have a final draft. I emphasize the word draft in January. But given all of the pandemic issues that are in place, no one is pressuring us to have it, every I dotted this month. If I have a draft that I can share by the 30th or the beginning of February, I think we're in good shape. I want to mention I did get from Superintendent Lindsay's team the high school draft, and I'm going to review that, and we can perhaps share it next meeting, unless Bill Doyle and his team want to say something today or save it for next time. But that is moving forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would need from the high schools is some of the demographic information that I can include in our narrative as well. So if that
Okay.
is something you have, Gus, that you can kind
I
of look
did
back
send
and
you.
forth between.
I did send you an updated overview. Did I not, Mike? With my information, whatever I updated. Do you recall getting that from me? If not, I'll work on it and send it to you. I thought I sent it to all of my districts based on the information that I could get.
You may have, Gus. I don't know. I'll have to look. I don't recall seeing that,
what I
but
did
doesn't
was,
mean it's not there.
Richard Bellis. Richard Bellis has this database in Queens North, and what I did was I collaborated with him, and I downloaded whatever updated information I could get from Richard, and I went into everybody's overview based on the last time we did it, and I updated it, and you could tell because it'll say as of 2021.
If you can share that again with me, Gus, that would be great,
Okay.
and then I'll put it right in the.
I'll look for it. There's always a chance that I thought I sent it to you and I didn't. So
No, you very well may have. Fine.
Okay. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ready.
Okay,
Thanks,
everyone.
Gus.
So we are in a decent space in terms of the DCEP draft. All of the goals and sections have entries. I did share over the weekend a link to that draft so that you all have access to it. And you're all welcome to give it a look and share any feedback as we go through. What I'm going to share with you today is specifically the goals, and there is one goal in particular that we are seeking some feedback, because as Superintendent Domingo and I were organizing this based on the new template comparatively to the old template, there was one goal that we were just contemplating whether or not we wanted to do more in, because as I said, as we were reviewing it, it raised some questions for us also. So I'm going to put in the chat the Google Slides for today, and I will also share my screen. We're going to just give about 5 minutes for us to review the goals. It's done in a little bit of a different way, and then any feedback that you have, and we'll kind of wrap this particular section up.
So while he's loading, as Dr. Mike said, so you all have copies of the DLT, the DCEP. So, any questions or concerns, please, feel free to read it. Right now, we're just going over the goal section. We're not going over the entire DCEP with you.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest part of the changes and the updates and the benchmarking that we're going to be doing. So
yeah. So what you will see in the actual draft are the progress monitoring section, the action plan section, the family community engagement section. So each of those components has just reviewing goals. So different from past years' DCEP documents, this year it asks for districts to include a desired state, an outcome goal, and a process goal, which we have included for each of the 6 goals that we've created as a district for this year. Now, one thing I will say, because we write goals a little bit differently than what others do, we tend to write our goals where we're telling you what we're doing inside of the goal, as well as what that SMART goal section will be. So some of our desired outcome, desired state, outcome goal, and process goal are all already blended in, but I did separate it apart so that you can take a look at it. So I'm going to put a quick little timer on the clock, just give everyone about 5 minutes to review. And this is what you'll see: desired state, outcome goal, process goal. For each one of our goals, the one that we do need the most feedback on right now is providing greater support for our multilingual learners and families. We tied that into our parent chat work, but we believe that there's some more conversation that should be had on that before we finalize this goal. So I'm going to put the timer on the clock. We'll just take 5 minutes. Please do a quick review because these goals are not new, but just quick review of the format and of the current structure, and any feedback that you have would be great. And certainly for our last goal, this providing greater support for multilingual learners, we would love your feedback on that. So if you can open up the Google Slides that I added in the chat, that would be great. And if you can provide that feedback, that would be awesome too. I'll go through each of them on the screen if you're having trouble accessing it.
So for those of you reading through them, you will see that although there are subtle changes in the way the goals are organized, the intentions of the goals are still in place, right? So we've been talking all year around strengthening the instructional core, addressing the organizational and pedagogical conditions that are leading to historical opportunity gaps for certain subgroups, and the way that we are working district-wide to target those needs. If you look at the way, and I'm glad that we have to look at this structure in this way, the way our E&L goal is structured, the only identifying piece of success has to do with whether or not a school engages in a targeted parent chat for families that speak languages other than English. Now, it brought us back to what is our desired state for providing greater supports for multilingual learners, and what should that look like. I think we've had some conditions in place and some structures in place that we have done over the years, such as training with Marian Cucciara on the 3 L's in terms of literacy, working on disproportionality of referral rates and really understanding the difference between learning disabilities and language acquisition, training our teachers in language acquisition in many different ways, expanding upon our dual language and bilingual classes. So there's a lot of different things that we've done. But what we found when we hit this goal in terms of the new template is it enough, and I'm putting it out to the DLT, is it enough to support multilingual learners and their families by only doing one parent chat? Asking for a friend.
No.
Yeah.
Simple. No.
Yeah. And you're correct, Shirley. So I'm thinking, because now we're mid-year, right? And so what are some of the things as a DLT that we would like to communicate to our schools that we would like to see for our multilingual learners?
Yeah, and just one thing, just part of this too is that because of the new template, our priorities in terms of subgroup were our students with disabilities, our Hispanic population, and our Black population were the three subgroups that we had initially built our goals around. And then new template also included this section around multilingual learners, which we continue to work with and for throughout the year anyhow. But in terms of the context of the goals that we had already created, this is why we're in this space right now of asking for that feedback.
So what I am thinking about, and just see if you can, if you would agree with this. So we are already, supporting our teachers and our schools in CRSE and MTSS. We can leverage that, and that was part of our former goals. We can leverage that with specific identification of schools that have a large number of English language learners struggling, and ensuring that MTSS supports are part of their targeted work. So if Ls are a concern, then you need to have an identified MTS program and be able to clearly articulate how you're specifically supporting your multilingual learners.
Can we also add the student's voice to that as well? A lot of them are the translators for their parents at the same time. So they can also translate needs that, what the parents are feeling is lacking in communication and transparency, and also what they actually need as well, as is learning. Maybe doing something like that.
You see Dr. D'Antona starting to write. He loves when
I have something to add.
Yep.
Because I think the most important thing is that people who speak another language, being that they don't speak English, they don't think they should come to these meetings because they're not going to understand. I think that's the big part of it. I've spoken to a lot of people, and most of the people that I know that don't speak English well, that's what their response is to me. And I feel that that's why they don't show up. I mean, that's why we didn't have a Spanish parent chat that day that we had that, because they just feel that no one's really speaking their language. And that's something that we need to change, right? We need to make them aware that if it's needed in their community, that it's something that can be offered. Because there are a lot of parents who would get involved if they knew that was the case. And the second part of it is those people, whether they speak, there's a lot of Hispanic children out there that don't speak Spanish. So they may speak a little at home, but the majority speak English. So I don't know if they're being put under that category as multilingual, but how are we helping these children? So I would like to know what services are put in place to help these children right now, and if it's working.
So, as you know, depending upon where you are in your progression of language, multilingual learners receive mandated services in a lot of different ways as chosen by the parents, right? So in District 25, we offer the dual language programs, we offer bilingual programs, we offer like transitional bilingual where classes start in one language and then they in the beginning of the year and then transition to English towards the end of the year. So there's a lot of different mandated services that our multilingual learner students receive. We've also had, like I had said, the training for our schools through Marian Cucciara, just in terms of different types of language instructional supports, right? Just different ways to teach vocabulary, ways to look at sentence structure, choosing rich and engaging texts for students, and being specific about that to target the needs of multilingual learners. So there are these footprints of supports that our schools will recognize, which is why I transitioned to say, since MTSS is part of these multilingual supports, it would be in addition to the mandated services that our Ls get. And our schools would recognize that in a way where they would say, okay, so now I really need to be specific and targeted in the additional supports that I provide for these students. And then that would really come from the MTSS plans that each individual school needed to focus on. Now, what Shirley is saying is something else that I like, is around like tapping into student voice of multilingual learners and what that looks like, sounds like, feels like at each individual school, starting from elementary, but moving into through middle and high school as well. Like, where is student voice of their needs, the needs of a multilingual learner? So I like that idea, and I definitely think it's something that we should be inclusive of, asking our schools, like, at what point are you engaging with your multilingual learners to get their feedback?
Danielle, wouldn't we get that feedback from the people, the Black and Hispanics that are not doing well as well on the reports?
I think kind of what Francis is really talking about is asking kids, right? So our focus on disrupting some of the organizational and pedagogical conditions leading to some of these gaps is inclusive of speaking to kids, right? So when Mike and I go into schools, one of the things that we've asked, when I was just at 107, the group of students that I spoke to were students within that category, right? So we asked questions around, certain things that addressed what's happening in their school. So we do target that. But do I think that schools are sitting down and speaking to multilingual learners? I think individually, but in a structured way, I don't know. So I definitely think that mid-year, it is something that we can recommend to our schools because they're already engaging in student chats, right? So this would be a targeted student chat to make sure that you're engaging with your multilingual learners.
Part of the process of within the context of our goals around this idea of equity visits. Within the equity visit itself, a portion of that visit is intended to for schools to engage in an interview process of sorts with kids, particularly kids that are within identified subgroups. In some cases, they are Ls already, because for a given school that might be the targeted subgroup. In others, it's our Hispanic population. In others, it's our Black population, dependent on the individual needs in each of our schools. So that is a part of the process already. The one thing just in general around our Ls, what we do know is that we do a great job of providing kids with services so that they are testing out, in short order. Over the course of time in elementary school, they do test out pretty early on in elementary school from K through 3. The difference with our English language learners is that it's a continuous cycle. So even if you're testing children out, we have new Ls that are coming in every single day into our system. So it is a consistently moving target that we are looking to support for sure. And most frequently, it's our children that are in the upper grades that we do have to attend to, because they are without that opportunity of instruction in some cases when they get into our school system in grade 6, 7, and 8. A little bit of a disadvantage for them in that sense, because they're starting their academic career off with us at a later point in their life, and they have to learn that language in that time period. And research talks about it being 5 to 7 years for someone to master the English language. So it puts them in a position, especially children at that age group, in a little bit of a different situation than children that are starting with us in pre-K. So in terms of the student voice piece, I do think that we can embed that in there in relationship to what we currently have structured inside of our visit process. It's part of what we're expecting schools to do already. So I can think about how I can organize that as well.
Mike, just a suggestion, you might want to put it in as a process goal and then relate it to the action plan, particularly since you're already doing it as part of your overall equity piece.
Yeah. I like it a lot, and I think it's something that we can implement right away because we do have the expectations of that culture across the schools. So It's just that when we made decisions at the beginning of the year, we've English language learners, for those of you who have been on DLT for a while, has always been at the forefront of our goals. And, as we saw there, albeit we always need to continue to work, but we saw success, but we saw the need to target others. So now we'll just bring it back and kind of add it into the mix of MTSS and student voice. So I like that. Thank you very much, Shirley. Francis, did I answer your question, Francis?
I was just wondering what services were in place for those that are not doing well in those areas and how we can improve it more than 4%.
So each school has a different idea of what MTSS is, right? So very similar to other services that are offered to different groups, subgroups of students. You have your mandated service, which are certain number of hours that are provided through the school as mandated services that have to be scheduled during the day. And then you also have your Title III money that many of our schools use for different levels of support, sometimes on weekends, sometimes after school, depending upon, and that is specifically targeted to meet the needs of ELs. So it really depends on each individual school, what their population is, how much Title III money they have, what other resources are they using for MTSS. So that is more of a individualized school question, but we can gather that data. And Gus, the new DCEP doesn't ask for it, does it?
No, it doesn't, but
schools used to have to put that into their SLTs, right?
It is part of iPlan, and it is part of the CEPs. So you could, when you download the run reports for individual schools, you can get the Title III program.
Yeah,
and many are offering the Title III services for their kids as well.
And that's only one form of the support. So I think what Francis is bringing up as a DLT, maybe we should interview our schools to really see the targeted supports that they're giving to their ELs and what that looks like by school. So it's a good,
Yeah, that's when with the student voice, because since they're recipients of the support, they can tell us what's working, what's not working for them. And if we see an area with consensus that is not working, then we'll be able to refine that kind of support.
And we can layer that into our conversation with principals to say, like, tell us the supports. Did you engage with students that are specifically getting those supports? And then maybe present a list of questions for them to go through with their students and get feedback as to the impact, the student perceived impact of what those supports are, and if they wanted to see something different. I think it's a great idea.
And in terms of state accountability, if you look at wherever there are significant numbers of Ls and SWDs statewide, there's always an achievement gap. There's usually an achievement gap. And it's very important to address that achievement gap and constantly work on it, because then the state accountability will impact on that.
Yep. Well, we know, and something that we've spoken about as a DLT for many years, and then I'll let Mike finish so we can move on quickly to Bill. We do know that District 25 does a great job in early childhood in supporting the needs of our English language learners. Many of them test out by grade 3. The problem is when in terms of our middle schools, those students continue to progress, but then we get a whole other layer of Ls that are coming to our schools in 6th grade from other countries, which is very different, right? So early childhood literacy is necessary for all learners in early childhood, but by the time you get to middle school, there's different needs of our English language learners. So that's where we see our biggest struggle in terms of bridging that, how you gain this understanding of content and language at the same time, because we want them to have We want them to continue to grow in their language acquisition for when they go to high school, right? So that, I will honestly say, is our biggest struggle in the district, in terms of supporting our Ls. So yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at what's interesting, when you look at our ESSA data, the state accountability data, our L subgroups are typically performing in two areas, either at a level 3 or at a level 4 when you're talking about state accountability. So in terms of overarching performance as a subgroup, they perform rather well comparatively to state schools across the to schools across the state. So it is one of those components, of one of the reasons why we kind of landed on other subgroups as being the priority for this given school year comparatively to our Ls because of that reason. So when you look at it, it's interesting. When you look up and down our schools across District 25, you're going to see level 4s and level 3s throughout the entire district. But
the problem is the bar is set very low for that.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So
100%.
we're like one of the highest in the city for servicing our Ls, and we're still only at
a long way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 17-18%. Right. So, and I just gave myself a couple percentage points. So like that's so we need to continue to watch, and that's where we say to principals, and Shirley, you brought that up, and I think Francis asking us to really get a picture of what schools are doing this year. It's to say that even though our Ls are progressing, they're still not where we need them to be, because
100%.
although we rank 3 and 4 in terms of state accountability, many of our students are still scoring 1 and 2 because of language acquisition. So we have to keep moving in the positive direction, and not forget that although they're moving, we need to make sure they continue to do that. So
100%.
Okay. Yep. All right. Mike, are you?
Yeah, I mean, that was really just a review. Anyone have any comments or feedback on any of the other goals that were presented? Again, these were not new. They're goals that we've been sharing all year. But if there's anything else, and I'm gonna, based on what you guys just shared, I'm gonna rework some of what that multilingual learners goal states, and then I will be happy to share that with you guys again for additional feedback before this draft becomes a finalized document. But if there's any other feedback on any of the other ones, please feel free to share.
Okay.
But other than that, that's it then.
And so so Mike and I will craft that slide, and we'll email it to all of you guys. That will be inclusive of both what Shirley said and what Francis said, because I think that's important, so that we get a handle on that. Okay. So Bill, you're up next.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
I'm uploading your slides now, Bill. You should get it in a second. Oh, you share it? Oh, you can share it. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're good.
Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to go to the second slide. So for the high schools, on December 21st, as everyone's aware, the Board of Regents canceled the Regents exams for January 2022. As in the past, all schools are going to be in session. This is also a great opportunity for the high schools to continue with the screeners. So that's what we're recommending for the high schools. We also have a few dates down here. So January 31st is going to be professional development date, and February 1st is Lunar New Year, and February 2nd is the first day of the second term. So this year is going very quickly. Administering the 2021-22 student perception surveys and review participation rates. So for 21-22, the student perception survey, the deadline is January 21st. This is through a Panorama education platform, and it's to ensure we're trying to get the greatest number of students in the school to complete the survey so that teachers receive their reports for spring. There's a minimum of 10 students needed to complete the survey for each teacher in order to receive a full report. And really, this is formative. That's why I put the 3 asterisks here. The survey is for formative purposes only and is not going to be administered as part of advance. This does not impact on teacher development or their evaluation process. It's really to guide teachers to see how they're perceived really by some of their students. For multilingual learners, we're having designees should review this additional allocation of funding that was in the January 11th SAM, and the funding should be scheduled in Galaxy by January 18th. Again, the big piece here, and this is part of the Chancellor's initiative, is that all schools should have plans for our Ls and our mills for college and career readiness. So that's really what this funding is designed for, so that schools are being thoughtful and creative in ways to create plans for students after high school. There's also a 2022 New York City school survey, and this is different from the perception survey. And the window for this is February 14th through April 1st. In preparation for this particular survey, schools should designate a survey coordinator for the administration. And again, it's geared towards schools so that they're getting more detailed information on how students are perceiving the school. And it's something that schools are going to receive assistance with. The next piece is the January 22 Regents waivers. So since we're not holding the Regents this year, they're still in talks about what that process will look like as far as waivers. But the cancellation in January 22, the criteria for exempting students from the exam requirements, students would have taken one or more Regents during the 21 exam period at the conclusion of a course of study or makeup are exempted from the requirements. So again, guidance will be reflected on this in due time. And then the last thing I want to talk about, again, these are certain school really positive things. So at World Journalism Preparation, students engaged in what's called the Brain Power Wellness Workshops. So this is a program that's they've been working with for, I believe, some time, where they're teaching students and teachers physical and mental brain breaks, mindfulness practices, and social emotional wellness strategies that support a positive classroom environment. And here's the link here so that you can see it. It may be something that could possibly help with elementary as well. And you can see some of the pictures of our students here. So one example of this, and I can try to do it for you, is you would you try to move your thumb and your pinky at the same time, which seems a lot easier than what it actually is. So you get the idea. I'm not so good at it. I have to practice.
Yeah.
And they have other brain-based pieces as well. Again, it's trying to get people to think outside the box. And the more divergent, the research shows that the more divergent you are able to be, the more flexible you will be. So your brain improves, dendrites grow, etc. So it's always good to do that. Any questions on any of this? All right, that concludes the high school report.
Thanks, Bill. So
Very welcome.
I'm glad to hear that, because we have a lot of schools using that. Yeah, we have PS32, 185, PS21. So 169, IS25 right downstairs. Yeah, so a lot of schools, Bell Academy, a lot of schools have been engaging in brain powers and in mindfulness activities. So that's great. Great to hear. All right, two last things. I know Esther is returning from vacation today, so I plan on meeting with her around DPAC. And then Frances, she's going to reach out to you, and part of the PAC conversations that we've been having, and actually something that is going to be part of A655 is the actually placing the PAC representative on the SLT is going to be, I know, one of the proposed discussions. So I know that there was some confusion. One of the things that having a PAC and a PTA does, it just expands parent leadership, and parent leadership roles. But I think we would like to really make sure that we do have a DPAC rep and that we're holding our DPAC meetings at the district level as well. So I know, Francis, that Esther will be reaching out to you around that. So hopefully within the next month, if not the following month, we will have a new DPAC rep on our DLT. The next piece is I wanted to present.
Can I talk about that? Could you make sure high schools are getting the PAC meetings? They also are part of the DPAC.
Yeah.
Please add. I always ask all districts to add Queens High School Presidents Council on the mailing list so we can also share when the meetings occur. Because this is one of the questions a lot of our membership are asking is when is the PAC meetings? Where's the PAC meetings? Because they are also part of the high schools are also part of the district PAC. As well.
Yep, absolutely. I'll make sure that you get that. And for the record, Lewis, let's make sure we get that to Esther too. So, and then finally, I have on the agenda, and this is something that I want to propose to you guys. I have on the agenda our SLT proposed date, our training for Monday, February 7th. But now I'm thinking to expand it again because I think I really want to do the training, but now that I was part of this proposed revisions to A655, I don't know if we want to do I don't know. I want to throw some training out there, but I want to engage in training with our SLTs, but I want to make it meaningful for them, right? So, and now I'm thinking February 7th might be too soon for us to really get together and organize a training. Like the one thing that I do know is I want Dr. Mike to talk about benchmarking, right? And how important it is at this time of the year to benchmark your goals to see where you are, the data that you're looking at. I know because of the pandemic, a lot of this stuff has been kind of, especially when we returned, there's a lot of things that principals are managing through. So that's going to be delayed a little bit. I'm thinking we can, now that we have our DLT, our DCEP in place, I'm working on DPAC, that if we set for our next meeting on February 14th, oh, that's Valentine's Day, which is lovely. If we set our Valentine's Day meeting to be solely for, getting our training in place and getting that agenda set, then we can do either, an end of February, first week of March training. And it will really be around all of the things that we want to say that are different and apart from what FACE says, right? So one of the things that we talked about is, benchmarking. You guys can think about other things that you might want your, CEP, your SLTs to hear. So can we agree to that? That the 14th, that agenda, Gus, you think you're going to have a lot to talk about?
The usual SLT training information. You and Shirley are more in tune with what changes are coming. One thing that going forward that people need to start thinking about are the new chancellor's 4 pillars. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about those 4 pillars.
Yep. So Gus, if you could, check in with your offices to see if you can get any kind of training documents. I'm going to have Esther check in with FACE, but I know that Sharon always has a little bit more. Esther will check in with Anthony also. So we'll all come with our ideas around what we want our SLTs to get together. And then if you really want, one of the things that I was suggesting is we don't even actually have to do a training date. If you guys are all willing to create your own presentation, Lewis can put it together for a District 25 training. And that could be our PD that our SLTs can watch at any time. So we don't have to schedule an actual training since it's only going to be virtual. So that's something we could talk about also. we don't have to actually set a meeting time where we have 400 people on or 500 people on. We can create our own deck that we can send to all SLTs and say, like, please, watch this. It's really about the work of the DLT. And I just volunteered Lewis, but I know he always does a great job and he'd be happy to do that. So it would probably work out to being about an hour and a half, because each of us will do our own presentations, including Gus, right? Maybe we can get someone from FACE. So let's set for us, if everyone is in agreement, to set that meeting on the 14th to talk solely about our agenda. People bring to the table things that you would want to present, right? And then we can get that in place. We'll make that final decision. Are we going to do, a Zoom, or, are we going to make it a webinar where anybody can watch it? So, okay, I'll leave that there.
Can we have a third choice?
What's the third choice? Yes, we can.
To do both. Because when you hold the meeting, they have an opportunity to answer questions live.
Yep. We could do both. That's fine. So the third choice, we could do that as well. So
any live event would be recorded anyway, so it doesn't. It's a live is automatically both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that would be the final decision that we could make in 14th, because on the 14th, once our agenda is set, Lewis is really good at sending things out to the, the SLTs and, getting information, getting surveys and all that. So, so we can do all of that next month. Everyone in agreement? Okay. All right, guys. Any new business? Did I forget anything? I think I got it all. I did. Okay. Any new business? All right. I'm 19 minutes over, but thank you all. Our next meeting is Monday the 14th. I will be sending you a reminder, and before that, Mike will be sending you the updated slide for the new MLL goal. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your week and see you soon.
Have a great one, everyone.
Joe, I'm going to call you for 2 seconds to talk about tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, great.
Send me that over.
All right.
That would be
Thanks.
great.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yep.
Take care, everyone.
Take care,
Have
everyone.
a good one.